from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay, a man was working in a grain bin when the grain started to collapse under him.
When it was still flowing, or when I was going, I didn't know when I was going to stop.
How a quick and knowledgeable response saved his life.
When will USDA decide if farmers could see MFP 3.0 in 2020? We'll have that today on AgDay.
And despite the coronavirus, will China still live up to its obligations under the new trade deal?
But I expect the purchases to show up.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. China will definitely honor its agricultural purchase commitments as part of the Phase 1 trade deal. That's according to a former senior Chinese government official quoted by the South China Morning Post. However, that same official says the coronavirus outbreak may mean the country will have to use a clause in the deal which states that both parties will consult each other if, quote, a natural disaster or other unforeseeable event outside of the control of the parties delays a party from timely complying with its obligations, end quote. AgDay's Clinton Griffiths joins us from Commodity Classic in San Antonio, Texas, where farmers pressed Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue on issues such as China and trade aid.
That's right, Betsy. Farmers here at Commodity Classic in San Antonio are voicing frustrations about the coronavirus, frustrations about the lack of Chinese buys, but that may soon change depending on the way that the market moves. Chinese leaders saying late last week they're committed to honoring that $40 billion trade promise signed earlier this year. Despite economic uncertainty surrounding coronavirus, Secretary Sonny Perdue echoing that, telling AgDay recent actions by China point to their commitment to buy from the U.S.
The movement is going to depend to some degree on the impact from coronavirus. When people can't get physically to the port, or they're quarantined or not able to come to work, then you have backups. But I expect the purchases to show up. I expect the movements to come up, but we also have to understand we're in the counter-cyclical shipment period for U.S. With the Brazilian South American harvest now, this is typically a time they will buy from South America rather than soybeans in storage here.
But what if China isn't clamoring to buy U.S. ag goods anytime soon? Tyne Morgan joins us from here at the show, and Tyne, you've got a timeline from the USDA.
Thanks, Clinton. Yeah, we're hearing here at Commodity Classic that China is making some purchases, including U.S. sorghum, but it's not enough to move the markets like farmers would hope. In talking with USDA Undersecretary Bill Northey, he said it's still too early to know if we're going to see MFP 3.0, and that decision could take months to make.
I would say later this year, looking at the 2020 crop. I don't know whether that's summer or fall. I don't know what that timing is. We'll get a sense as we get closer. Are we seeing trade step up such that it feels back to a normal situation? Are we seeing the market still struggle? Are we seeing some hangover from the last 2 years? Maybe a challenge to evaluate which commodities, because we may see differences between commodities, where some are moving and moving better because of the trade improvements and some aren't. But it'll be later this year before we would reevaluate.
Now, market analysts reminding farmers here at Commodity Classic it's dangerous to bank on MFP 3.0 in 2020, especially when deciding what to plant. Reporting from Commodity Classic in San Antonio, Texas, I'm Tyne Morgan for AgDay.
Thanks, Clinton and Tyne. As you heard Tyne say, China has been buying some sorghum. In fact, according to the latest USDA weekly export sales report, sales of sorghum reached a marketing year high and also a nearly 6-year high, with China buying 119,000 metric tons, but another 324,000 metric tons to unknown destinations. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan talking with the CEO of the National Sorghum Producers, also at Commodity Classic. She asked him why U.S. sorghum is such a desirable commodity for China.
Well, I think it depends on what industry it's in. Obviously, from an alcohol production standpoint, it has some very unique characteristics there. I think in southern China, more in the animal feeding sector, I think we have some benefits of mycotoxins and very low, or we don't have those, or very low in that. And that helps them be able to take some challenges that they have in other locations and make that work for their animal feeding. You get into the anecdotal issues of it makes the gizzards in ducks larger, which is actually one of the premier cuts in the duck market there.
The National Sorghum Producers expect to see a bump in acreage this year, with some of that being sorghum buying acres from cotton. A senator known as the grandfather of ethanol is commenting on reports biofuel waiver exemptions on oil refineries could be slashed. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley saying he's hoping this is good news, but he needs to have a deeper conversation with the EPA head Andrew Wheeler about it. This is as Bloomberg reports the EPA plans to scale back the number of small refinery exemptions it hands out under the renewable fuel standard. The decision follows the 10th Circuit Court ruling that said 3 exemptions granted for the 2016 compliance year were invalid.
I see this as good movement, as Bloomberg reported, but I won't be certain until I hear from Wheeler and EPA as an institution.
Grassley saying he's been fighting the EPA for the last 2 years. He claims the agency is not following the law with its waiver exemptions. We've turned the calendar over into March, and we kicked off the month with some cold air. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joins us now with more.
Yeah, we certainly had a chilly start to March, especially in the northeastern United States. Things have kind of leveled out a little bit as we start off our new week. Now, take a look at the jet stream. A lot of that cold air is retreated back off to the north. Now, we have an interesting trough down in the southwest that's bringing a little bit of some stormy weather down that way, but that all kind of falls apart. Most of the really cold air is to our north. We're going to be seeing more normal temperatures as we head through the week. Now, as we get a little bit further and into the weekend, another trough for the eastern United States, but a ridge builds in, so another warm weekend as we get into the eastern half of the country. All right, take a look at this cute picture. Hannah Borg of Northeast Nebraska sharing this photo with us. Now, she says this is her dog, Piper, who is now the new chief calf warmer. That is absolutely adorable. Always good to make a new friend, isn't it? We'll take a look at your national forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Betsy?
Coming up, March brings with it several important decisions for farmers. We take a closer look at what's weighing on those balance sheets right now. Coming up, an analysis from Commodity Classic. And later, how this man survived a grain bin accident in the country. Last week was rough for both the commodity and stock markets on fear about the coronavirus and the impact it could have on the global economy. Let's see where we're starting things off this week from the CME.
Today in the livestock market, the cattle did gap down. The packers did step in with a few bids to keep it from a complete free fall. The market did come back somewhat, but it's definitely keeping futures a little bit underpinning some support from it completely falling out. Now, as we move towards the end of the day, there was a little bit more of a sell-off. I think that technically we are oversold, but we have to watch out for the virus. We expect that it's definitely going to affect some consumer spendings.
Farmers have a lot of decisions to make this month. AgDay's Clinton Griffiths has this analysis from Commodity Classic.
Here at Commodity Classic, we caught up with Jim McCormick, agmarket.net. Jim, let's talk about here at the end of the month what our markets are doing, a lot of it driven by coronavirus, but also some big decisions to make for folks.
Right now, the biggest problem here at the end of the month, the farmers that had grain on farm, or off farm, excuse me, they had to make that decision. Either we're going to roll the contract or price it. So a lot of guys were feeling the pressure to price it because what's really going on is rents are due here as we go into March.
Sure.
So they need to generate income. The fact of the matter is, Clinton, the balance sheets are just a lot tougher this year than they were last year. We did not have the bushels. The prices have been a little bit weaker, and that's made the balance sheets tough. So farmers just had to make the hard decision. I think a lot of guys let that go here in the last week specifically, as we rounded the end of February, just to generate that cash flow.
Well, you know, and we had that grain in storage, and a lot of it didn't go into storage very well in very good condition.
Quality is a huge issue right now, and being said, they're telling people, be careful when you go into these bins. We've heard some really tragic stories this winter as people doing it, and I'm fearful that could happen more because the quality of this corn is very, very poor right now. And what that's got people thinking is, you know, we need to get it out of our hands quick as it starts warming up, and that's going to push more and more grain to the market. But farmers have good basis. You might take advantage of it because your neighbors, everyone's going to be a race, I think, to get corn dumped before we plant this year. I don't think you're going to see a lot of grain left into the on-farm storage into late summer.
And of course, we've got an issue going on with coronavirus. Our markets have not been super great. that probably is weighing on these decisions of do I do anything or I sit here?
Well, right now the coronavirus is the black swan of it. We're just not certain what it is. It is having an impact on everything we do right now. People are trying to make a decision, are they going to go on vacation or not? It's had a huge impact on the beef market. People go out, they go eat steaks, they go on vacation, spring breaks. So that is having an impact. As that kind of rolls the beef market, a lot of guys in the cattle market involved in the grain market, they're feeling pinched every which way. So that effect is also going to affect the Chinese demand. We're all waiting for phase 1 deal to kick in. And if they can't get grain moved, why are they going to come into phase 1? Now, I do think they will buy eventually, Clinton. I think it just may be more the fall because this is just going to push that demand back, unfortunately.
Okay, well, it'll be something to watch. It's been a dynamic spring. Appreciate you being here.
Thank
we'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
To contact Jim McCormick at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast all about production agriculture. Brought to you by Pivot Bio Proven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, whether or not. Visit pivotbio.com.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joining us. And Cindy, I talked with somebody with USDA's NASS department, and they said only 61% of corn in North Dakota has been harvested. And it makes you really feel for them.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a really tough year in the northern plains. They've had a lot of rain, they've had flooding, and then once we got to those cold months, and they've had several large snowfalls going through, so they've really kind of had it tough. So I don't doubt those numbers because of all of that, the weather just interfering. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, we have drought, and that's been fairly persistent in some parts of the country as well. The problem areas over the last few months have certainly been in Texas, especially the southern part of Texas, over in the Four Corners region, and we've had some dryness continuing in the west. A lot of that has seen some improvement, though, over the past couple of months. Still dry down, especially in Florida, but we've had a lot of rain in the southeast over the past month or so, and that's really just knocked out any of the drought that we have seen there. All right, let's take a look at this week. We are looking at above normal temperatures for most of the eastern half of the country, also in the northern plains into the central plains. It looks like it's going to be warm along most of the west coast as well. Perhaps a little bit on the cool side as you get down into most of Texas. What about precipitation? Well, this week is looking to be a bit on the wet side from parts of the southeast through the mid-Atlantic and on up into the northeast, while it looks pretty dry, especially in the far west, where we're looking at below normal precipitation. Now, let's take a look a little bit further into the future. As we look at the month of March, we're looking at above normal temperatures continuing in the southeast, fairly normal for much of the north central, northeast, and southwest, but it does look a little cool for the northwestern quarter of the country. As we head into April, we're still looking cool in parts of the northwest, and we're still looking warm in the southeast. That does stretch a little bit down into the southern plains as well. And then heading into May, we are looking at warm temperatures stretching up into the northeast, along the Gulf Coast, and into the southwest as well. Precipitation-wise, over the next 90 days, it's looking actually pretty wet for the eastern half of the country, especially here in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley. Looking kind of dry, though, continuing in the southwest, but kind of normal as you get into the northwestern United States. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Show Low, Arizona, look for cooler temperatures today with some snow showers and a high of 42 degrees. Sleepy Eye, Minnesota, partly cloudy and cooler with a high of 30 degrees. And Soft Shell, Kentucky, cloudy with showers and a high of 55.
Coming up, more from Commodity Classic from Machinery Pete, and he's finding some pretty good deals in Texas. Machinery Pete is also at Commodity Classic in San Antonio, Texas, and he seems to find good deals no matter where he goes.
Hey, Machinery Pete here, folks, reporting from Texas, down here in San Antonio for the Commodity Classic. Always fun to come back to the great state of Texas and hang out at the Riverwalk when you're in San Antonio. Big fun. Now, San Antonio is in the south central part of the state, and last year at auction I saw tractors sold all over the state of Texas. So here's a heat map from our machinerypete.com website showing where tractors sold at auction in the state of Texas the past 14 months. Kind of concentrated most highly in that northeast part of the state. Now, the last 14 months, the highest auction price I've seen on a tractor sold in Texas was this one, a 2016 John Deere 8370R, 1,718 hours on it, sold on an online auction out of Amarillo, Texas, and it went for $205,000. Second highest price was this one, a 15 model John Deere 9420R four-wheel drive, 1,528 hours. Now, this sold on a farm auction in Scotland, Texas, kind of the north central part of the state, went for $187,500. And if we drop down under 175 horse, well, here's the highest auction price in this category last 14 months in Texas. This John Deere 6155R, 903 hours on it with a loader, sold for $101,000 on a consignment auction in Sherman, Texas. And if we get under 100 horse, two of the three highest auction prices the past 14 months were New Hollands, including this 2016 New Holland T4 100, 830 hours on it, front wheel assist, went for $39,346 on an online auction out of Sulphur Springs, Texas, right again in that northeast part of the state.
Grain bins are important on the farm, but in an instant they can also turn deadly. How this man survived a grain bin accident and the rescuers who made it happen. In 2018, there were 30 documented grain entrapments, half of those resulting in deaths. And just last month, we told you about a man in central Illinois who died while working inside a grain bin. But new technology is helping save lives. This week in Louisiana's agriculture, Jennifer Finley talked to one man whose life was saved because of it.
We're in the northeastern part of the state where we recently had a successful grain bin rescue done. We had a situation where a farmer was in a bin using a vacuum to move grain, and that's when a collapse occurred and he was surrounded by grain.
We were just vacuuming and everything was going good. Just we sucked it in. The guy that was in there with me, he walked over to the door. It just started going down, not falling in, but going down.
I mean, it started out just like any other day. We got in a situation where we had backed everything that we could, and then they had to go in another 10 foot. And I think that's where the problem started, because it put us too high up on the corn. The next thing I know, they're hollering out the door, cut the grain back off, because the corn had slid in on top of it.
It was so quick, there wasn't much time to react. Came in, they gave me a rope, put a rope around me just in case something happened. Gave me something to prop my arms up on. I was up almost to my neck. And called 911.
Got the 911 call, and I was on scene within 2 minutes. First one on scene, and called the guys to bring a grain rescue package. And once they got the grain rescue package on scene, we secured the sides around the Toby, got everything secured. Once we got him secured and got the corn out, was able to remove him.
Like I said, they were right there, real quick. They knew what to do. They kept everybody else calm that was around me and got me out of there.
They actually, Toby don't remember this because a lot going on, but they actually got a couple of the big wide shovel scoops and then put around him to keep that corn from sliding, and was trying to dig him out, but the digging out wasn't working. But the scoops behind him did help the corn from sliding.
It was scary up until the corn stopped. When the corn stopped, I felt all right. But when it was still flowing, or when I was going, I didn't know when I was going to stop.
It was a very successful rescue, and I'm thankful for our guys for the teamwork.
They were all awesome. They I don't know if they've ever done it before, but they acted like they did. They knew what they were doing.
Farm Bureau trained us in 2014 for the first training we've had, and we've been through about 3 or 4 Farm Bureau trainings with grain rescue training, and I'm glad it's a rescue operation instead of a recovery operation.
They got me. They saved my life. They did.
My opinion is, if you're going to fool around grain bins, if you're going to haul with your own truck to the grain bins or a local elevator, I think everybody needs to go through that course, because I mean, it could be your best friend or your brother or cousin or even a stranger. I mean, everybody should better know how to do this.
Please come on out and join us, participate with us, and the proof's in the pudding. We have had a rescue, and we want to see the number of actual accidents go down, but if one does happen, this program is great to hopefully educate the public on what should be done to make sure there is a successful rescue instead of it just being a body recovery.
Our thanks again to This Week in Louisiana Agriculture for that report. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.